Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're talking about First Samurai.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron, when you think about, in the pantheon of martial artists,
Yeah.
okay, where does the samurai fall? Because, when you think about somebody like Bruce Lee, not a samurai, he's
No.
a kung fu master, right? So
Yeah.
you got your kung fu masters. You've got your karate guys. You've got your Tai Chi practitioners.
Yeah.
On the scale of being a man, where does the samurai
Well, well, I
fall?
mean, they're all man. Don't get me wrong. And I believe was it Miyoto Musashi, who's the very famous
That's right. He's the
samurai
That's right. Two
from
two
Japan.
swords, two swords in
That's
two
right.
hands. That's how
Oh, I
I
mean,
did it.
that's double stud.
Yeah.
It's funny in the movie pantheon, samurais aren't real high in my mind. They're way below like drunken masters or ninjas in terms of their treatment. And
Mhm.
often the samurais in some of the old shows I used to watch were not popular. They were the
Mm.
guys. They were more like they were like sort of like the cops
Mhm.
of that era. But in gaming terms, listen, when you got a guy with a samurai sword, I used to have a samurai sword, but I broke it. And it was cool. It made me feel like a big man,
Yeah.
yielding that thing, going out and whooping a butt with it. But the problem is, you don't see that many samurais walking around now. Like
Yeah.
people still dress up like ninjas or drunken masters, but not so much. I mean, listen, you dressed up like a drunken master last week, and you were killing it. But the thing is, you're a sort of kind of like a samurai in a way because of the stuff you practice, right? I mean, is that a samurai art? Is that what you
Yeah,
call
so
that?
I started practicing Iaido in 2005 in Newport News, Virginia. And I got into it because I found this book at the bookstore, and it was called EI, The Way of the Sword, and it was all about how the modern art of Iaido essentially was developed when the samurai were no longer needed to police the lands. Once the Great Peace came to Japan, and I think it was the Meiji Dynasty, they didn't need samurai to go defend the honor of the lords anymore. And the samurai didn't want to forget their skills, so they developed this martial art called Iaido. And I was like, man, that sounds pretty rad. And plus, you
Yeah,
get to use
that's
a
good.
sword.
Good
Um,
backstory.
yeah, and so I did it for a while in Newport News. And I moved to South Korea, and then I started practicing this art called Heidong Gumdo, which is more like, I don't know. It's not really related to Iaido at all. It's sort of this Koreanized version of Iaido that has. It's almost like the difference between Taekwondo and karate, and that Taekwondo is very flowery. There's lots of leaps and spins and moves like that
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily find in the traditional form from which it sprung. But it was still cool, and it was still a sword martial art, so I dug it. I've just always enjoyed having something in my hands that you can swing around and beat somebody down with. And
Yeah.
so that
You
was
should have joined a frat. You could
yeah,
have.
yeah.
That's neither here nor there. You know,
And
I think I agree with you. Anytime you get to hold the sword, or
yeah,
maybe wear the cool pants,
right, the Hakama.
samurais have the most comfortable pants. I'd
Hmm.
love to have a pair of those. That outfit. But
You
yeah,
know, it's
anytime you've got the samurai sword, you're golden.
Yeah, and then when I returned to the United States in 2017 or 2018, started studying Iaido, straight up Iaido, over in St. Albans, and I did that up until last year when they moved the date of the class to a day that I couldn't come to anymore. So I had to give it up. But in that time period, I got my second degree black belt, my knee dan, if you will, and I was helping teach the class, and I won a gold at the National EI Championships in Chicago a couple years ago. So now, all that said, am I a samurai? No, nothing about my life is anything close to the discipline, the mastery, the inner calm of a true samurai
I don't
warrior.
I don't agree with that at all, actually. You go to the monkey and retreat, you're doing deep religious study. That's something that's sort of samurai-esque. If we were to tangle, I mean, one-on-one unarmed, I think I got a good shot at it. But if you had a sword, you'd cut me into Swiss cheese instantly. I'd be screwed because I'd be up there waving it around like the Jedi kid they used to make fun of on YouTube, and you'd be cutting me up. You can't when you're trained with a sword versus some geek they're screwed. I know that
Yeah,
for a fact.
yeah. I will say that I probably could do pretty well against an untrained person in sword-to-sword combat. I'll give
Well,
myself that much credit.
listen, you won the gold medal, so clearly you're pretty good against people with the sword.
Well, EI is a single. It's a single. When you're in competition, you're just doing kata. You're not. You're not.
Don't blow the gimmick, Boat.
I mean, I
tried to put
destroyed
you over
12
here.
men, and one of them no longer has a head.
That's the remember that bit in Kill Bill? You may go, but your severed limbs belong to me. What a great line!
I've not seen Kill Bill.
Oh!
But,
It's so
I
great.
need to find I need to find a TV edit of that movie that I could watch.
It'd be 10 minutes long. Do you have? Does your sword? Where do your swords come from? Are they like, for example, in that movie, her swords came from Hattori Hanzo. They were Hanzo swords. Hanzo steel, big steel from Japan. Where are you? Who made your swords? Like, where did they make them? How many times did they fold them? All that stuff.
Well, my sword, the last sword that I bought, which is the really only nice sword I've ever owned, was made in Japan from a company called, I think it's called Tokaido. And it's actually a zinc aluminum alloy, because Iaito, which is spelled with a T, is the practice sword. This is a sword that is not sharp that you're using when you're in a class with 37 other people doing forms.
Right.
I never owned a shinken because we didn't practice cutting enough in a class to make it worthwhile. But yeah, you got to have a sword from Japan. It's got to be handmade. You've got to have all of the different fittings and everything. You know, I had custom made. I've got the crane flying on the hilt and everything like that. And
listen, if you draw your sword from the hilt, does that mean it has to taste blood? Is
That's
that
right.
true?
That's right. When you draw your sword, one of you is going to die.
So, but you've never drawn a sword, like a real sharp sword in anger to cut a sucker.
No, not yet. But, I wouldn't put it past me.
Man, this makes me want to buy you a sword, a real sharp one, just to see if I can get someone to piss you off in public.
Next Hayes Valley Classic Computer Club, something happens.
You're going to gut a sucker.
All right, Aaron, let's talk about First Samurai.
Right on. The disco groove of First Samurai. This game is an odd game in some ways to me.
It's an odd game in many ways to me.
Yeah. So, of course, one of the reasons we picked this one, this is that we get to pick the game week this week.
Yeah.
And I picked this one out because we never played it, but we did play the sequel. But I'd heard they were different enough to, and also we played the sequel. What was it? 168 episodes.
It was episode 187. I want to talk briefly about that episode, just in case anybody goes back to watch it. Because this was one of the episodes. We used to do wacky stuff all the time. We had bits before the show and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the bit before this show was the dawning of the Amigo Aaron weight loss wager.
Yeah.
So if you can,
that was a real thing. That wasn't a bit.
Well, yeah, that wasn't. You're right. That was a real thing. It was the initial weigh-in for the weight loss wager. And so I was wondering if that a little bit of your machinations behind picking second or First Samurai is if you wanted to kick that off contemporaneously right now.
Correct. I will now announce the Amigo Aaron weight gain wager.
Oh, man,
I believe I could gain 50 pounds before Boat Fest. For every pound I gain, Boat will pay me $20.
I don't like this anymore. No.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that was funny. And also the fact that you were wearing your outfit for that show. Just like a real samurai. So I noticed this time around you're wearing your normal outfit.
Yeah, I forgot to change because I was taking a nap right before we started playing the shows.
That explains it. So, nevertheless, neither one of us had ever played this game up to this week. I mean, as far as I know, this is the First Samurai year released 1991 on the Amiga, published by your favorite ImageWorks, Boat. They did, among other things, we've looked at several of their offerings, include Bomboozle and Brat, Speedball 2, Xenon 2, and they did the Back to the Future games, bunch of stuff. They were the publisher, the developer of Vivid Image.
That sounds like an adult film company. I'm not
It does. That's exactly what I thought. They were responsible for Second Samurai, obviously. Hammer Fist, sounds pretty good. Street Racer AGA and Time Machine. The coder on this is Raphael Keko, who was responsible for Second Samurai and Stormlord, and the graphics were done by Teoman Ermac. And this guy came, amongst his offerings was Aladdin, which was a graphical tour de force, I think we can agree,
Mm-hmm.
and Black Tiger, Cool Spot. He had a bunch of stuff. He did Second Samurai. The music on this from Nick Freight Train Jones. I made that part up, but it's Nick Jones. I just thought he had a name that needed a cool nickname. This is ECS OCS double disc action. This got multiple releases. A couple of these really surprised me, Boat. Aside from, of course, the obligatory Atari ST release, this got a DOS release in '92 along with the C64. And in '93, this came out on the SNES. Had you ever played this on the SNES, Boat?
I've got a lot to say about the SNES version.
Oh, so you've tried it this week. That's outstanding, Boat. Let's talk about the opening of this game before we get into the backstory. Because if you watch, did you actually sit through and watch the opening, or did you just?
I did.
Like
I did.
Oh,
I thought it was cool. I didn't button because I'm into samurai culture, Aaron.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see what was on offer.
We finally found your hot button here, Boat.
Yeah.
We could talk about that. So the backstory in this is actually spelled out amazingly in the game. So I'm gonna just kind of give you a quick snippet here. This is from the official description. It says, "The Demon King descends from his mountain domain to you, the first samurai and your master, defenseless against the demon's magic. You succumb to its powers, leaving your master to fight the Demon King alone. Your master falls in combat, dying, but with his last breath, he summons the wizard mage." That's the double. It's not a wizard, it's not a mage, it's a wizard mage. The Demon King, fearing defeat, escapes to the future. For some reason, tormented, the young samurai seeks the teachings of the wizard mage in the ways of magic. Boiled with revenge and armed with a magic sword, the young samurai follows the Demon King into the future and the unknown. So there's a lot to unpack there, Boat, about this one. What do you think about that as a backdrop to this game?
Listen, I've heard worse. And when you watch the intro to this game, the story, first of all, it opens with a very cool animated I said animated GIF, an animated animation of two samurai who are facing each other, just kind of with their eyes closed, meditating. One, of course, has his shirt off, which is I don't think any samurai in history ever did anything with their shirt off. But you got to be when you're as ripped as this guy. He looks like
it reminded me of the love scene in. Remember the love tea scene in Karate Kid 2?
Yes.
That's what it reminded me of, except this isn't love.
No.
This is mutual respect and understanding as they meditate and also are buff. Yeah.
That's right. And then through a series of ukiyo prints, you get the story spelled out to you. It's not just a scrolling wall of text, but you actually get pictures that go along with the story, and the story is not too long. So I give this opening an A+.
I love the way you determine that. It's interesting, the art's fun, and it's not too long, and you're in. The thing that struck me as particularly wacky is the fact that the demon fears defeat, so he leaps into the future somehow, and then the samurai follows him. How did they do that, Boat? If you had that kind of power, are you going to chase a demon through? Why are you bothering?
It's a power that can only be achieved through extreme buffness.
I guess the wizard mage could not go backwards in time to save the master.
Right.
Although the master, in true Obi-Wan Kenobi fashion, he lingers around the game. You see his visage occasionally.
Yeah, and he also presents our hero with the magic sword.
Yeah, the magic sword. So when you play this game, it comes up. I played a version, I will say, that allowed you to have two buttons. Thank you, sweet modern times Amiga, because this I think would have been a little more irritating than it would be with just the one button. This, Boat, I'm dying to hear your thoughts on the controls in this, because the first thing I did when I loaded this up was checked out how you do stuff, and this is one of the games that has your favorite bit. Hold the button and the joystick in a certain direction to make your sword or your karate do certain things. What did you think about the control setup in this, the one you've usually reviled over the years?
Well, over the years, I've become the Stockholm syndrome is in effect, and I've sort of become used to and even somehow enamored with the one button controller, because there's only so many different ways that you can utilize this setup and still give your guy a ton of moves. I always talk about this as being Lionheart controls, and one of the best things about Lionheart is that Lionheart has a million different ways to move.
Yeah.
He can kick, he can slide, he can stab up, he can stab down. Same thing with this game. The difference between this game and Lionheart is you actually have a weapon that's worth its salt in First Samurai. It's not that wimpy Lionheart sword. So you can swing this thing around like a mofo, and you look cool doing it. So, of course, would I rather have multi-button controls where I could swipe in different ways by pressing different buttons? Yes. But in this case, with only the one button, I felt like they did a pretty good job.
I will say, and you start the game kind of amusingly without a sword,
Mhm.
but so you're doing your karate, and
Right.
your karate works pretty much sort of the same way as it does without the sword. But I really, yeah, I hate this. Listen, I love the Lionheart. I love it, but it's not perfect. And one of the things the Lionheart does is the sword doesn't give you enough jack. Like
Mhm.
this guy's sword, like it's sort of like a lightsaber. There's like a glow to it.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got cool moves, and he looks cool doing them. Not like a
Mhm.
dork.
This is
And
this is sort of this is the rare find in Amiga where not only did they give your guy a wide variety of moves. One, all the moves look cool.
yes,
Two, the guy doesn't look like a doofus doing the moves.
no,
That is so rare to find, not just on the Amiga, but on a lot of platforming games in which you use a sword. You either
yeah,
walk like a doofus or swing the sword like a doofus. In
yeah.
this game, even the walking animation is one of the best I've ever seen ever.
And the sword swinging. I mean, also he doesn't just for it's just like between me and you with swords. Like if I'm gonna sword, I'm just swinging around like an idiot. But you're looking at what you're doing, you're paying
Yeah,
attention. So does this guy. He looks
yeah,
like a samurai with a sword. Good
yeah.
job, game. So they got that part right. So now let's talk about the game proper. Of course, you're in the future. I don't know what kind of future. I don't know what point in the future this is, but I'm guessing the far, far flung future, not the modern day future, because there's a lot of weird crap in this world, including platforms that are held aloft by like jet rockets. There are aliens. There's in the thing. There are weird creatures in this world. There's city streets that look sort of like a modern city street, but not exactly. So you're in sort of a weird area. I don't know how they chose these various areas, but they're
I
not.
think they wanted to make this is the far flung fantastical future. I'm sure that it's post apocalyptic in some way, and it's a future where magic is taking control.
Well, I was doing a little looking on Wiki and Moby, a couple other places, and they mentioned this interview that I looked up. It was in the one, and the one interviewed the team about this game. And so the graphic artist, Paul Dochery, said he was sitting around. They were so Vivid Image was working on a game, but they didn't like it. Okay, it was like a game they didn't like, and he was sitting around watching. Of all things, he was watching Them, the giant ant movie from the
Yeah.
50s, and he had this thought. He thought of a game with a samurai. I don't know why, because there's no samurai in that movie. And so he took it to the guys at the developer, and they're like, "Yeah, samurai. That's what we need. Something cool like that. This game we're working on is no good." So I guess they crashed that game and started working on this one. And then he had the idea. They're like, "Listen, we like the idea for this game because there are no bounds. We'll do whatever we want, and we will put lots of cool effects in it." And
Mhm.
cool effects they've got. They've
Yeah.
got cool effects coming out the yin yang in this game. There's all kinds of crazy effects in this game, and not limited to multiplanar scrolling, like late the effects on the sword, the effects on the guy. Like you mentioned, that opening screen where the guy's like the very first thing you see is the guy's doing this move, and the animation's awesome. So these guys clearly were good at their craft when it came to doing that stuff. He also said that they wanted to make the game like funny as well. Now we'll get into how I feel about that later, but they did it. I guess they sort of did that in a way. It's sort of funny in some areas, but to me that doesn't do it any favors. So here's the way this game works. You're going through long. I think there are a total like 5 or 6 levels in this game, and these are your Turrican style, never-ending levels. They go on and on and on and on and on. They never stop, in fact. And each parts of the level, usually, the way it works is you can unlock, you'll be able to get past a point in the level that you couldn't get past before because you've picked up something or another that helps you get past it. In the first level, for example, you have to do several things to get past it, including collect a bell that will let you use your special master powers to extinguish a fire. So you can get past that, for example. And there's a lot of that sort of thing in the game. Picking up items by going on a little side mission to get them, just to get past the point in the game that you can't get past. And then once you get past that, you move on to the next little side mission to get you past the next point of the game, ultimately until you get to the boss of that level and you have combat with them. You're not totally screwed. I said you've got your sword, which you can lose if you take enough damage. You can lose your sword.
Yeah, which is one of the great parts of the game is every time you lose your sword, you get a wonderful voice sample that says, "Oh no, my sword!"
Yes, it sounded like a John Belushi said it on the old Saturday Night Live. You remember that guy?
Yeah,
when he played the samurai.
Samurai. Mm-hmm.
It was that kind of like, oh no. We should. Oh, I'm glad you brought this up, Bub. Do you want to talk about the meters at the bottom of the screen here?
Yeah,
that's
so
different.
You've got, instead of having numbers that represent your health or a certain number of hearts, you have your extended arm is shown making a fist going across the bottom of the screen, and as you take damage, your arm disappears little by
Just
little,
like real life.
Yeah, bit by bit. And then you and once your arm disappears fully, you are dead. I found this to be dumb, and I was longing for either a bar or a number system. Number systems are always better, but this is also one of these games too that you have there are no invincibility frames. There's no knockback when you get hit. So if you find yourself sort of like walking into some fire or whatever, it's over. You're screwed.
Oh, yeah.
Like, your health just goes down and you're dead.
And some stuff kills you instantly.
The sword is what is the sword? I never really figured that out.
It matches your magic, Boat.
Okay.
So the way the sword, like I said, Boat got it right. At the bottom of the screen, you've got the two things. One of them is the stupid arm, and the other one is the sword. This is the sword represents your mystical energy.
Oh,
now,
okay.
So this is an interesting gimmick here, because for example, there are these little pots that you'll come across in the game, and they glow, and when you go over to them, and I think you have to pull down. But if you stand there long enough, your guy will charge up the pot. He'll use some of his mystical music to charge, mystical energy
that's
to charge
how that works.
pot.
Okay, because those are checkpoints. The pots are
correct.
checkpoints. Yeah,
that's right. And
yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, sometimes I could activate the pot, and sometimes I couldn't. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out why. Okay, that makes sense.
The guy on the screen just did it. In case you're watching,
you got to have
home.
mystical energy.
Yeah, and so and here's another little tidbit for you. So if you die, that's where you'll go back to, or if you take a little potion that you'll find, they will automatically take you back there. It's sort of the game's way of getting you back up without having to go all the way through. Also, they can send you places that you can't get back up, and you have to take the potion. So that's how they use it. The little pots, though, you can only have one of them active at a time. So you can screw yourself if you forget to if you don't find the one that's closest to you, or you go and accidentally, for whatever reason, which I did this early on, I would charge up every pot I saw, and sometimes I would backtrack and
Right,
charge
I
up a
did that
pot I didn't
before
want.
too, and, like,
Yeah,
there's one at the very beginning of the game that's kinda elevated up that I missed, and I was like, "Maybe this
yeah.
is how you get out of the level." And nope, you just go
No.
back to the last one you activate.
By the way, I should also mention I never got off the first level of this, and I'm not. Normally I'm ashamed of myself and feel horrible, but I don't because this level is one of the longer levels in any game we've ever played. I mean, it goes on forever. I
Well,
thought I
the
was
you know,
well into it, and I was
the
not.
comparisons to Lionheart don't end with the controls. The level design is also very similar.
No, but this level is way longer than even the Lionheart. This is more like you're in the Turrican level. Like, I mean, it's a long level.
I'd like to remind you that you've never once in your life completed the first level of Lionheart.
Well, no, that's not true. I've completed the first level tons of times. It's the first
No.
world area. I
Well,
mean,
that's
yeah,
what when you say level, that's what I'm talking about. The first
yeah,
level of this game is like the size of the first world of
yeah,
Lionheart.
yeah. I guess, yeah, okay, I'll give you that. As you run through the game, of course, you're going to come across enemies. Now, early in the game, they're going to be critters, mostly, and bats or something. I don't know what these things are, birds, whatever they are. Plus, you're going to get the usual stuff that you would find in a game like this. Rocks fall on you, stalactites fall on you. There's spikes that you run into. There's fire. It's all the stuff you would expect in a game. The thing in the first level that tickled me, of course, because after I had read the opening, but I still didn't. It didn't sink in until I was attacked by the official aliens from Alien are in the game. They attack, then you're like, oh yeah, it's the future. Because in the first level, you don't get
Of
that
course, there's going to
vibe.
be aliens.
Of course, yeah, you gotta hack him up. Your guy also can come across stuff that he can throw. Sometimes it's knives. Sometimes it's like axes. Sometimes it's like this ball. There's also satellite weapons that sort of hover around you, like a spike ball that you could use. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different pickups that you can get in the game. Um, After you work your way all the way through the level, you'll come across a boss. I believe the boss on the first level is one of those patented gimmicks that you saw about this time, which was the old, like the snake or dragon head made up of the balls. We've
Yeah.
seen that in a lot of games, and they
Mhm.
do it. It works well here. I mean, it was fun. In fact, boy, look at that right on cue. If you're watching at home, there he is. But to get to him, you've got to you've got to get all the stuff you need to get there, and then when you get the bell you need to summon your master to give you the bridge that you lay down to get across the waterfall to get there. So there's a lot of that stuff. And then as you move on through the game, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's more of the same, but it's basically there's not a huge change in what you do. You go, like I said, there's a cityscape. You're going to sewers. There's an area where you're on a train, which is cool. None of these things I saw, by the way, just an
Yeah.
FYI.
Yeah.
So, Boat, I want to get your thoughts in general. I want to get your thoughts on the theming of this game, and more importantly, what did you think of the aspect of the humor that they put in the game? And when I say that, I mean, like, for example, when you open up certain safes or open up baskets, it plays Hallelujah. It does that kind of wacky stuff. I mean, to me, a lot of this game was, I don't know. I like my games a little more serious than this. Like when you get food, it says "eat it" or "eat me" or something in big, huge letters. Like that's supposed to be funny. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought the tone was kind of all over the place. Like, I
Yeah,
don't mind humorous games, but I don't really see this game as a humorous game. That's sort of the problem.
yeah,
But I guess you find that kind of incongruity in a lot of chop suey movies, where ostensibly they're not funny movies, but there's a lot of parts in them that are funny. So I don't think this sort of thing is entirely without precedent in the genre. Um, the Hallelujah chorus thing, I thought that was funny. I wasn't like I was like dying laughing, but I was like, oh,
no.
that's unexpected. I guess it was more unexpected than
I
funny.
didn't feel like that when
Um,
I got food. I felt
yeah.
like that should be going off.
This game is uh it is a sort of a tour de force, a multimedia tour de force, in that it combines a lot of the best things about the Amiga scene, especially from this time. 1991. There's not a lot of games out there that look this good, that play this well, that have the sort of variety of sounds that you have here. Now, of course, all of these sounds are just samples. You know, you've got the main tune. Uh, an interesting kind of thing that's programmed in that you don't see a lot is that whenever you're walking around, background music will fade in, okay, and there will be a background tune that plays, but then as soon as you strike an enemy or do anything to interact with the game, that music goes away and all you hear are the sound effects. So this game isn't strictly music or sound effects, but in a way it kind of is. I thought that was interesting. You know, obviously they did that because they just didn't want to put both of those in together. But it's there. Um, this game looks great. Like I said, you know, we talked a lot about the main character, but also the individual enemies are drawn with some care. They do have the disadvantage of being of the infinitely spawning variety, which sucks. I hate that in all games. And by 1991, we should be done with that, but we're not. But you know, the enemies look good. Again, but there is a confusing tone. Like you'll fight against like little aliens, and the aliens will be kind of cute. You'll also have like these spiders, and the spiders have big googly eyes, which are kind of cute. But then the other enemies are not cute. They just look like regular animal representation. So again, I feel like the tone is kind of all over the place in this game. And I will say that I think that it probably would have been better for the game to just strike more of a serious tone altogether, in my opinion. But the backgrounds are lovingly, you know, they're varied. You're not just, again, it's not like in Turrican where you're just fighting in the same sort of like cave scenario all the time. In the first level, you do get to see the sky, you get to see the copper backgrounds and things. You got multiplanar scrolling, got a couple moons up there. You got to have a couple moons in the sky. I mean, in the future, everybody knows that Earth's going to have a couple moons. It's just one of the things that happens. And so, you know, I've got a lot to say, a lot of good to say about the visual presentation. The audio presentation of this game is very unique. Where this game falls apart, and you just got done talking about it, is the level design.
Yep.
The levels just go on for way, way, way too long. There are way too many branching pathways. There are a lot of times where you're just not sure where to go because the game isn't necessarily forthcoming with which environments are destructible and which aren't. Like you can swing your sword over a pile of rocks and it can do one of three things. It can either be a solid surface that you can stand on, it can be part of the background that does nothing, or it can be a solid surface you can stand on that is also destructible that you have to destroy to get to the next part of the level. And that's just not good from a player perspective. This is a frequent problem on all of these games that we play, where they had really, really good programmers and they had really, really good artists, but they hadn't yet realized that level design, you need to have somebody that's really, really good at level design to make a good game. And that's where the game falls short. But Aaron, if you will let me continue to speak, I want to talk a little bit about the Super Nintendo port of this game, if
Yeah,
you'll
get
allow
on it,
me.
man.
So Kimco approached the developers at Vivid. They saw somehow they heard about this game. They saw it in action. Maybe there was an Amiga scene in Japan for sure, or they might have seen one. They might have seen one of the ports, and they said, "Hey, you know, we want to port this thing to the Super Nintendo." And of course, the guys at Vivid were like, "Yeah." Because you know what that means? Nobody's going to be pirating the game, so we'll actually be able to make some money on it. So they agreed, of course. And Kimco took everything that's great about this game and added a couple of things that make it more easy to play, like with the Super Nintendo, you have 6 buttons to do, instead of just the one. So every button you're able to fire your alternate weapons. That's one thing we didn't mention. It's just like in Castlevania, you have an alternate weapon that you can fire in this game. Sometimes it's an axe, sometimes it's like a homing thing. And so you have that available to you as well. That's mapped to a different button. So things are just better. But the biggest thing that they changed is that they radically altered the level design. It's not even the same game at all. They make it much more straightforward, much shorter, much more easy to see what to do. And on that version of the game, I was able to make it to the first boss. So, however, when I got to the first boss, I had no idea how to kill the first boss. I was swinging my sword, nothing was happening, so I don't know what I was doing wrong
Was it
there.
that
But anyway,
snake guy in the
yeah,
Nintendo version?
it's two snakes. It's like
How
two
how
centipede dragon
how
heads.
similar how similar I mean, you said the levels are shorter, but did they just break the levels up or did they just
No,
are
no,
they
the levels are totally different. Like
I
the
see.
pathing, everything is different. Even I think the level sprites are different, but the dude is the same, the monsters are the same, all that stuff is the same. So,
Okay.
but they just I think because you've got a tile set or whatever. I don't know how programming works, but anyway, they redid it so it was easier. And so I appreciate Kimco for coming in and taking a good game and making it, if not a great game, a better game.
Is it would you is so in graphically, music, sound, is it on par with the Amiga
Oh,
version?
it's better. It's better because you have music. The music is going on the whole time.
Yeah.
And boy, I can't remember if the Hallelujah chorus is still in there or not. You'd think that that would be something that I'd remember, so I can't. I'm sorry. You'll have to check it out for yourself. But you do get music and sound effects the whole time, and of course, the Super Nintendo sound chip is going to give you a better experience.
Would you consider that the version of this to play then, the first Samurai on
Well, I
the
only
Super
played the
Nintendo?
two, so I didn't play the
I
DOS
see.
version.
Right.
But of the Amiga version and the Super Nintendo version, 1,000%. Play the Amiga version just so you can see where it started. But then if you want an upgrade, a nice quality of life upgrade, play the Super Nintendo
I
version.
may have to try that because there were a lot of parts of this game. It's funny. I remember when we played Second Samurai, not liking it that much. I mean, I just I didn't get into it that much. I actually I wanted to get into this more than I did, but it was just so the levels were frustrating. And again,
Hmm.
we've talked about it, just like you said. It's just that was a philosophy on putting together levels that I don't like. But otherwise, and the humor I didn't like, but I mean, otherwise, I thought that everything looked cool. How many games we played where the lead guy's a dork? Like you said, it's cool to play a guy where you look like a stud. You're
Yeah.
crushing stuff. You're cool looking. You're not a big weasel. So I like that element. There's a lot to
Yeah,
like.
yeah, and there's also one of the things also that we talk about is the spirit of your master is
Yeah,
with you as you move through these levels. And there are certain places where you'll see like the spirit of your master will appear in head form. And it's your job to ring a bell. When you ring a bell, you summon the master, and the master does lots of different things for you.
yeah.
And what's cool about this is it's not always the same thing. Like sometimes the master will come in and make it rain, just like I do at weddings, just with the DJ, I'm throwing dollar bills.
Or at the
Sometimes
club.
he does that. Yep. And then other times there's like a big energy beam that comes through and kills all the enemies. Like you never know what the master's going to do to help you out. And I thought that that was a really cool thing to kind of mix up the action as well.
I agree. Like I mentioned earlier, like sometimes he'll break out and make a bridge for you. Sometimes he'll smite guys. He does a bunch of cool stuff, but it's a nice gadget to have in there just to do something different.
Right.
Different's good. We like that. I like the fact that your guy can climb ledges and stuff,
Yeah.
which
And
is
the
cool.
climbing mechanic is not frustrating. It's very
No,
intuitive.
it's not bad. It's not bad, and you can soar off the. I mean, you can, like I said, the guy's nimble.
Hmm.
I wonder what more. I would have stole this for other games,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically. I think that would have been the way to go. I read there were a couple things that didn't make the cut due to memory restrictions. And one of the things was if they were going to make a full sewer level with full flowing water. They just couldn't
Hmm.
make it work. That's also the reason why the music's not front and center. It's because they were trying to do so much that they
Sure.
couldn't get music to play the whole time.
Yeah.
They were aiming for uh, at least 30 frames per second. They got 25. I wouldn't call this game the slow or
No.
anything. I think this game plays. In fact, I kind of like because it's not so fast. It's out of control. It's a
Hmm.
steady pace. That's I would say it's maybe two shakes up from Gods and how fast it is. Gods being super slow, and so I thought they did a good job on the frame rate as well. I thought they did a pretty good job on that. Um, you know, in the end of it, I thought to myself, this is one of those games that's like I couldn't wait to look at the reviews because I wasn't even sure what I thought about it. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to think to yourself, was this worth my $24.99 or whatever pounds, and back in the day, I would probably say, with a different mindset, obviously, I would say absolutely provide it, but you've got to get past the level issues. But I wondered how this would review. The people at Lemon give this an 8.07, to a very good score over at Lemon Boat.
Hmm.
And the people at Lore, the Lore scored 90%, so even better over there. Looking over the magazine ratings of the day, Amiga actually gave this a 94. Amiga Computing gave it a 94. Amiga Format gave this a 91. Amiga Power gave it a 91. Amiga Force gave it an 89. So you've got really good scores. Games X, I don't think we've heard of that one, gave it a 5
No.
out of 5. The one gave it 89. So these are the average magazine rating after it's all boiled. That was 90%. So the consensus of the media at the time was that this was a big winner, which I can absolutely see why, because also they didn't mind the level thing like we do. So, and considering that this plays nicely on an ECS OCS machine, everyone gets to play, and it gets to play a game that looks. I mean, I'm not saying this is console. I would say, certain
Yeah,
consoles. I'd say this is up there.
I would call this. I would
Yeah.
say that this is a console quality game.
Yeah.
Is it the best console quality game? No, but again, when you play the Super Nintendo version of this game, you're essentially playing this game just with better level design and multi-button support.
I
So,
think this one to me was a pleasant surprise. Did we get any reviews on this one this
we
week?
got one this week. We got one from our stalwart companion, Pajako 6502. He says, sadly, due to a busy schedule, I didn't get much time with this one, but it was all I need. I spent about 2 hours, and after getting very lost in the first level, backtracking all the way to the start to get a bell, because even though I had the special items, which were logs, I still needed the bell to use them. You can then build a bridge that leads to the first fire-puking demon boss that's just a grind, and I just gave up there. Graphically, the game is gorgeous with echoes of Turrican 2. I often lament the lack of music and sound effects in Amiga games, but the sheer number of random and conflicting random sound effects that also do not work with the music shows you shouldn't always try and do both. From a basic gameplay standpoint, it works, although combat is a bit kludgy. Sadly, what really lets the game down is that it's chock full of dick moves in the level design, blind jumps into peril, places where you had to take a damage and trial by death, which is not fun in my book. Oh, and having to waste energy to trigger checkpoints? No, dude, no. Why would you do that? On a more positive note, the Amiga version pees from a great height all over the SNES version. I don't agree with that at all.
Oh.
After all these years of meaning to play this one, I can honestly say I haven't missed out. Oh no, my enthusiasm, 6 out of 10.
Wow, Burial. Let's
Yeah.
address a few of the things he said. He's not wrong in some instances. The level design we've mentioned, I didn't think. Listen, I've played games with a lot more blind jumps than this, if I'm honest. But one of the things I did have trouble with was like knowing exactly where I could go in some of the areas. But I mean, that happens in a lot of games. We just had to happen on at our ST show. I will say one thing he mentioned: the sound effects. One of the problems this game has, and I see this all the time when I'm playing like pinball machines that were homemade, is like when you play them on like PinMame or something, it's like someone tries to do too much, and so the sound effects start overlapping or doubling up, and I did get that a lot in this, especially with the Hallelujah chorus. If you opened 2 or 3 things too close together, then it was a mess. So that's one thing that did happen. I noticed that with the sound effects quite a bit. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't think the combat was all that kludgy. I mean, one other thing. Everything continuously respawns. That's not my favorite. I know it's not your favorite.
Nope.
And so that gets kind of old after a while. But like I said, I think the bones of a great game are here. But what they've produced is what I would call a pretty good game. Just to close it out, I looked this up on eBay. This thing shipped with a poster boat. If you could get the poster version of this, you make some money. I did see sealed in box version of this going, and these are sold from $65 all the way up to $140. And a couple sold for $130. I saw this was part of a combo pack you could get with Megalomania. If you get that, I saw that combo pack going for $20 if you want to cheap out. But that's pretty much the only way you're going to go. Any part? Oh, before we go, what do you think in your mind, because you are the guy who ranks all the games in the pantheon of gaming, platformers and whatnot, where does this fall?
Oh, I would say that this is an easy B plus platformer on the Amiga.
I would concur.
If you ask any Amiga repair technician what the most problematic component of a motherboard is, they'll undoubtedly mention capacitors. The electrolytic capacitors that shipped with the Amiga are 30 years old or older at this point, and each one is a ticking time bomb waiting to explode battery acid all over your motherboard, sometimes damaging it irrevocably. Don't wait. Replace your capacitors now. Full capacitor kits for every Amiga model are available now at retrorewind.ca. Don't want to attempt the repair yourself? Use their white glove recap service and leave the intricate removal and soldering process to the professionals using industry standard equipment. Use the promo code Amigos10 at checkout and save 10% off your cap kit or service. Remember, make retrorewind.ca your first stop for all your Commodore computer needs.
Amiga News.
All right, Aaron, it's time for our one and only Amiga news story this week. Hyperion in the news in recent weeks for supposedly blocking the creation of the A1200 Maxi has released a new update for Amiga OS 3.2. So if you are a user of one of the two new Amiga OSs out there, you can download this from Hyperion's website. It says that some of the features are reaction classes have received numerous updates. Text editor now allows users to define a custom menu with macros, and 12 kilobytes of chip RAM is no longer reserved. So this is a world that I do not live in, but if you live in the Amiga OS 3.2 world, I think Doug is a big Amiga OS 3.2 guy. You can get yourself updated and ready to go.
We don't even visit this world, but if we can help, we run from this world.
Yeah.
This is the sewer level of the Amiga. Get out of here. You know, it is, the timing on this is interesting because after they were just drugged through the mire last week, this week now, hey, look, here's a new free update. Kickstarter. I love everyone. Well, you know, whatever. So good. Hey, this is good. I'm looking at these. I suppose the 12K of chip RAM thing is something. The rest of this stuff, it doesn't seem like it says 50 other fixes. So that's probably something they've been working on. Listen, it's always good to update these things to the people that care about that sort of thing. But it's too hard to care about stuff these days. I just like to lumber forward and just a vain attempt to understand. I can't even try to comprehend things. That's out the door.
Yeah. So anyway, that's our one news story for the week. Aaron, what do we have coming up on Amigos next time?
Oh, Dragon's Lair. That's a great game for the arcade. If you're into that sort of thing, you know I am, Boat.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not. You're so much not into it that you're not even going to be here, are you?
That's right. I'm checking out.
He's out of here. I thought you were going to get up and leave. So filling in for the Boat, because Boat, do you want to tell everyone, where are you going next week? Hey, you remember?
So, most of you know, if you're a long-term listener to the show, that I am in the formation process of becoming a Roman Catholic deacon. And so that entails years of graduate study, which I accomplish 1 weekend a month over in Charleston. So I will be knee deep in fundamental theology next week. So that's why I really appreciate you and the Brent taking Dragon's Lair.
I mean, listen, Dragon's Lair, knee deep in fundamental theology. It's a tough choice, but I'll do it, Boat. That's my soul you're playing with, but I'll do it anyway, buddy. Yeah, and I will say the Brent. This is a lucky break for the Brent, because this is a game that myself and the Brent have played many times, and Brent's beaten this game. So, and Brent's a real good hand at Dragon's Lair too, so he can speak quite intelligently on this one. It should be a lot of fun. I'm sorry you're going to miss it, Bo, but I'll make sure to mention you in there. Maybe you can write a little review of your own and stick it in the old reviews before you go.
All right. Well, thanks as always for listening, everybody. And if you want to support our show, patreon.com/Amigos podcast. Can join the very best Discord server on the internet. Plus, you get uncut, unedited, longer shows every week where we talk about all kinds of random nonsense. And also, you can just sleep well knowing that you've done a good deed by giving us some cold, hard cash.
Yeah.
Thanks as always for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week. And until then, adios.
Adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos Podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.